Hello everyone, this is Joe, Four Soft Corners here, and for today's video, I am going to do a response for Jake, Legends Never Die. I wanted to do this a long time ago, so it wasn't last minute, because I'm sure he's going to get a ton of very long videos to watch right before his deadline, but it's just with the holidays and everything, it did not happen. I haven't made a video for like 7 or 8 days. But in the meantime, I was thinking about this the whole time, so I'm finally gonna get this. Um, I have to apologize because I know this is probably going to be pretty long, but Jake, your video was 45 minutes to show your collection, so I feel like that gives me the go ahead to make mine long also. um, and I also have to apologize because I know it's going to be all over the place, but it's very fitting because that's what my collection has been until I finally feel like it's kind of got on a path a little bit more here. But so first off, I just want to show. So one of my biggest regrets, besides some cards I wish I would have focused on more at the National, picking up some more stuff for my 53 top set, but my biggest regrets were the people I did not, that maybe I didn't watch their content for a long time and then maybe saw them pass me by on the floor or at the YouTube meetup, didn't just reach out and introduce myself and all that, just to get to talk to some people. And Jake was definitely one of those people that I missed out on because I just didn't take the initiative to stop and say hello, introduce myself. So, but for that reason, I do not have one of your customs yet. And I know in your video you included that if we include hashtag chop on in our video, that you would send us one. So that is a great custom card, the 56 tops card, so I definitely would like one. But I had to do my own little spin on it. So personally, I think Jake did this contest and added that in just to get Phillies and Mets fans to say hashtag chop on. But so if anybody didn't notice yet, my wife picked this up somewhere really cheap on clearance, and she was really excited just because she knew I was a Phillies fan to give it to me. I did not have the heart to tell her that the reason it was on clearance is because it says American League up here. But anyway, it was the perfect for this to include with the P there. So there, we got that in here, but I had to still put a Philly spin on it. So we'll start off just by showing some random stuff here. So I started collecting as a kid in the 90s, early 90s, and stopped about 1998 when I was about 15 years old when I stopped. It's like everybody else, just grew out of it a little bit, just didn't, you're a 15-year-old kid, other things seem more important at the time, so just fell out of touch with the hobby. Didn't collect for almost another 15 years, and so in 2013 it was kind of just by random happenstance. There's this small dead mall, there's a card shop in, and they're just at the mall for some reason that day, and decided to go in and started looking at the way what the hobby had turned into, and what it was now. So I just had that nostalgia opening pack. So I mean, I started with like 2013 tops and Gypsy Queen, and then Bowman and Finest and Chrome. And so what's left, these are just, common cards. And these, not necessarily my collection, but just I have boxes of stuff like this yet. These are basically the last remnants of just what my return into the hobby started with, from about 2013 to 2015. Just buying, boxes. They were much cheaper back then, and just opening them, and I had a ton of fun with that. But I wouldn't really say I was collecting at the time necessarily. Like, looking back, I almost call it more accumulating, because I wasn't chasing big hits like for the necessarily the monetary value, but just the thrill of, pulling a big autograph, or a refractor, or parallel, or a patch card or something. And I had a ton of fun with it, but I really personally did not like just buy any cards that I would chase it. One of my big things, I wanted to pull a Griffey autograph, because in the 90s, when I collected, most, like, everybody else pretty much in the 90s was my favorite player. But I easily, for what I would spend for a couple boxes to try and chase that, I could have easily just bought one. And I don't know why I never really dawned on me at the time. I guess it was, like I said, it was more so the thrill of trying to pull big stuff. And I did end up with a lot of bigger cards, but like I said, I was pretty much just accumulating them, and tapered off in 2016. And then basically was, again, kind of just didn't have time for it, I guess, in 2017 when I met my wife. And so went on, pretty much didn't do anything with cards that year. And then 2018 finally started selling some stuff, which I hadn't done prior. We were saving up for a house. The end of 18, we closed on a house, and a lot of my profits from cards funded a lot of the down payment. So that ended up being good then. Got something back out of all that I put into it. But for all intents and purposes, I was done. I just didn't, I guess, have as much of a passion for it anymore. I knew I didn't want to go down that road again of just buying boxes and ripping them and ending up with cards that I just, ultimately need to sell again, because I still didn't really have much of any kind of collection. And then throughout 2018, some of my friends got back into the hobby, and that kind of reinvigorated me a little bit. And through the whole time, I was still staying up with everything as far as, just the hot things in the hobby and news and all this stuff, because I was, actively selling all my stuff. So I still, knew what was going on. I just wasn't buying anything. And then, so as my friends got back into it, got me energized a little bit again. Around 2019 is when I started really getting back into it. But I wanted to do it different. So sorry, I know this took forever to get to this point, but I feel like it's all part of the journey and it's important. So, what I first did was, 2019. Harper signed with the Phillies. I was always a fan of his. So I went through, a lot of the cards that I showed in the beginning there are down to just, a lot of base stuff. But at that time still had a lot of bigger names, like rookies, and just bigger name, some parallels and stuff of, stars, that I hadn't completely all sold off yet. So I had a pretty big stack, like 75 or 100 or so, just different Harper cards from all the stuff that I had opened. So that was really my first, step into collecting again, or I guess, like I said, maybe the step from just accumulating to collecting. So just started picking up. I mean, like I said, everything from like 2013 to 15, which were the years that I mostly ripped stuff. Just started, like I said, I didn't want to go down the path again of just opening packs just to open packs. I wanted to actually collect. So I just turned a lot of those cards that I had in a box into, a PC. And then started picking up a bunch of stuff. So for a couple, like year or two there, I was pretty much would call myself just a player collector. This was, I mentioned in one video, this collection of Harper's was like almost 800 total cards, and I think like 565 different cards, unique cards. But then I sold off a lot of it just to fund some vintage stuff, which I'll get into more then. But so just showing off some of these. I've showed these before, but just these are, my player collections, which is kind of what, like I said, really got me into actually collecting for the first time, instead of just accumulating cards. I showed this off before, but anybody who didn't see it or doesn't remember, I'm probably maybe the world's biggest Billy Butler fan, and it was just more so started with a joke. I've referenced him many times throughout this channel, but my friend Bryn, when we played modified pitch softball together, nicknamed me Country Breakfast, which was Billy Butler's nickname. And this is just one of my favorite PCs still, because it just, to me, is a reminder just to have fun with it. I mean, these cards to most people are not worth much at all, but to me it just, reminds me of that friendship, and reminds me of just having fun in the hobby. Because I mean, a lot of the stuff here, some of the really lower numbered, like this one's out of 25, this one's out of 25, this one's out of 10. So I mean, some of these were like $5 or so, but I mean, a lot of these were under $1. Most of it came from ComC. And then I showed this off in a video. This will be just another one I was player collecting a little bit. My Chase Utley collection. My favorite parallel ever, the 2011 Topps Chrome Atomics. And then last, for this aspect of the collection, I'll just show off a little bit, because like I said, as a kid in the 90s, Griffey was my favorite player. So I had mentioned in the video I lost 99% of my childhood collection, which I know I had two like big binders just filled with all different Griffey cards. Nothing, any of the low numbered inserts or anything, but just things that were very nostalgic to me and got left at an ex's house. So but I have a video where I mentioned I found, my dad had actually found a small box I had with some cards in. So these 9 on this page I just stuck in there together, because these were ones that was almost like a time capsule, because most of these are 97, 98, right before I stopped collecting. So were cards that I found again, and it was just really happy to find those again. And then the rest, one my brother's older than me, so he collected through the 90s monetarily, like a little bit heavier than I did. I mean, most of mine was just begging my mom for money for packs of cards, but so he still had some of his collection, and it was at my parents' house yet, so I just asked him if he minded if I said I wasn't going to sell any of this stuff. I just wanted to have it because, like I said, I had a lot of these cards. I just ended up losing them. So at least they just sat there for years. So he said that he didn't mind. So, and then as it goes on, some of these were, modern pickups. So kind of simultaneously, sorry, I probably drifted off a little bit there. I'm not good at editing, or didn't really want to try and edit this, so I have like 20 things laid back here just to keep grabbing. But so kind of simultaneously, as definitely my Harper PC, I was filling that out, kind of just happens up until this point, I never really maybe say understood vintage. I didn't take the time to learn enough about the sets, and I guess I was just into flashier stuff. But I think it was around that time in 2019. So we live in a little development, and the head of the HOA is an older guy. He's probably 75, 80. Just had to stop by one day to talk to me about something, and came in and sat at our kitchen table and was looking back into like my little office area, and I had just boxes of stuff organized that I was selling at the time. And at the time, Chris Archer played for the Pirates, and he was a Pirates fan, and he just saw I had it alphabetical, so the first tab in the one box said Chris Archer, and he just asked what was up with that. And then I told him I was into collecting baseball cards, and that was stuff to sell and everything. And so he'd mentioned that he had stuff from his childhood. He didn't know if it was valuable at all, and just wanted me to look at it. So looking back, I wish I ended up looking at it and consigning, I guess you would say, stuff for him. Looking back, I wish I would have just tried to, for what I know it sold for in total, I wish I would have I would love to have it now, because it's basically what I do now. The bulk of it was from 64 Topps baseball. It was all baseball. 61 Topps and 57 Topps and a little bit of 56. None of it was in much higher than 3 or 4 or 5 shape, any of the better cards. Like I said, I didn't know enough about it. Well, I knew looking at some of the cards, obviously. I mean, being a fan of the game, I knew the players. I just didn't know the individual sets. So I basically, for a couple months, I should say this, pretty much everything could fit in like a 2-row box. So it wasn't, a ton of cards, but I basically just sat, did research, and started individually pricing out and individually kind of grading every card, even all the commons and everything. So just doing the research that way on the sets and of condition of vintage and all that, like, it started to just grow on me more and more. Like I said, I wish the biggest thing probably was like, it ended up being, and I didn't think of it this way at the time, it was probably at least half of a 1964 Topps set, maybe a little more, and had a lot of Hall of Famers. There was a Mantle, probably would only graded like a 2. A lot, Clemente, there was the Pete Rose, Ernie Banks, Bob Gibson, Harmon Killebrew, Brooks Robinson. So a lot of the key Hall of Famers, and I just ended up selling those all off for them through eBay, and I was set up at a flea market at the time, taking a small percentage of it, and that was helping fuel my player PCs. Like I said, if I had to go back, I would definitely have made an offer on the whole grouping. But I sold all that off for him, and then as I was doing that, like I said, I had grown very fond of the vintage cards, and at the time started to get more and more into YouTube. I'd always watched some videos, but didn't religiously watch people. But at the time I started watching Baseball Collector Mike, like a lot of people have that. So I mean, that was a great way to gain a lot of the knowledge about the vintage sets. And then also ended up finding Eric Those Back Pages, and I guess I'm not too ashamed to admit that that was going into 2020 then, so I think I ended up going back and watching every single one of his videos, just because I just loved his thoughts on collecting and the way he collected. And so that's kind of where how I got down this road. So when I started vintage, I just kept learning as much as I could. But then when I started, I wanted to, I'm just going to flip through this quick, wanted to start building a set. So I took on this 1960 Topps set. And it was kind of around the time this was 2020, so I mean, a lot of stuff was starting to really take off. I'd started selling on ComC, and I sent a bunch of some early, not even rookie, but just early Mike Trout stuff. Some of his first Prism card from 2012, which isn't even, it's just the first Prism in the first year they made Prism, but isn't a rookie. I had a couple of those, and I think those ended up selling for $100 a piece raw on there. So I also started selling on Sport Lots at the time, so just between the two, I would just use all my profits from that and pick up cards for this set. So this was my first and only complete set build, and just because of all those turning just cards that I didn't even think were worth much into a pretty large kind of bankroll just towards this set, and selling them on the same sites that I could easily just pick the cards up then. And then started going to a local mall show, which I set up at now. This was really my entrance into vintage, and there's the mantle. This is the way I wanted to do it. I just wanted to collect raw. I wanted to collect, I didn't care if cards were in low grade. I mean, here, there's a Minoso with, some wear and wrinkle right through the middle. Definitely 4 soft corners. But, to me, I just want to own the card, and, looking at it in a binder arm's length away here, it still looks like a great card. So I was fine just, low grade, raw, vintage. That's what I slowly just started picking up all the time. that's that. So I think one of my last videos I showed this. So after I completed the 60 set, I thought, well, I might as well just start another one. So I went back 1 year and started at 59. And I got about, I'm not going to flip through all of it, but got about halfway through. And kind of just started to get bogged down to the point where I just wasn't finding cards as readily. I didn't have as much of, like, you know, I was running, wasn't selling stuff as fast as I was on COMC, just because I was running out of, you know, inventory to sell. You can only find so much at local, you know, shops and mall shows and stuff. So that's when I kind of transitioned from just, well, first off, I should say at this point I pretty much was almost completely done with, I was 99% just all vintage, and thought I was just going to be a set builder, one at a time. But then I started at one of my local card shops, just in some shows, just finding, like, you know, like cards I could bundle together of just, so I've shown all these small, you know, samplings of sets in earlier videos. But I'll just flip through because this is how I, for now, any of these, you know, don't have a ton of any of these, just have them all in one binder. But this is what I started finding, just, you know, I could group together and get a lot of these cards that weren't in great shape for, you know, a couple bucks a piece for Hall of Famers. Like, I think it, just averaging it out, like here, George Kell and the Minoso. I think those probably average out to like $2-3 a piece for a lot of these. When I just bought them together in groups, I got a lot of these 54 Bowmans for probably like $1 or less a piece. So it was just things I couldn't turn down at that price. So I'll just quickly show, this is where I transitioned. I stopped, you know, just building one set, and I thought instead I would just start accumulating these cards from all the sets, just so I had, you know, sampling of all these different years and different sets. And I know some people like to focus just on the Hall of Famers, but I personally kind of, I mean, I like, you know, the sets in general, so I don't want to discriminate against guys that are just, you know, common cards, because they're still all beautiful cards. And when you really look into it in the future, is what I want to do with some of these is go into, on a, you know, card by card basis, look up some more things about guys I don't necessarily know a lot about, and then maybe do some videos on that. So I'll just stop for a second and show this, which probably looks like the ramblings of a crazy person. But so when I transitioned into just starting to pick up all this different stuff, I just literally printed out, because at first I didn't have a lot, so I just trying to remember, but then I was, you know, doubling up on some stuff in lots and stuff like that. So I literally just printed out every checklist from 1950 to 1980, just to keep track. I mean, I'm not actively building all those sets, but just to keep track of what I picked up. So again, this was it's kind of what I was doing for a little while. And in the process of doing this, I randomly picked up some 53 Topps cards just to, you know, have some from the set. And then it turned into, I picked up a couple more. This is not the Jackie. This is from the, well, this one specifically is not the Jackie Robinson. So any of the ones that, well, I have in slabs, I just use the 91 archive set as a placeholder. But so again, I didn't necessarily want to just set build one set, but I fell in love with this set, and this is like my pride and joy. I've actually picked up a lot. I got back into, you know, another push on this, so I have, I think, roughly 12 cards or so coming in for this, and it'll put me, I think I'm down to 43 cards I need for the set. I mean, I obviously still need the mantle and the page, so that's still going to be a tough hill to climb, and it'll be the last ones I pick up. But I mean, just love this set as a whole. I'm going to do an upcoming video once I get those cards showing off, you know, my progress on it. But so up until this point, still completely in my head, I was a raw low-grade vintage collector. And then the National happened, and well, I have this set out. This was not the first card I picked up, but ended up picking up this card. And just being the card it was in a Jackie Robinson, like, and the biggest thing was just the prices of raw cards. It made more sense to me to buy graded and to just know I was getting something authentic. And I just don't have the heart like you, Jake, to break this out of here. So for this set, this was the first graded card I picked up, and I technically only have 2 to this point. But then when I came home, so I showed this card off also before, I had won this card for a $15 spot in a set group break I did, and it was just raw. And I was going to keep it raw because I still had that in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. But then after buying the Jackie graded, I figured I would go ahead and grade it. And another reason why I kind of transitioned being okay with graded is one of my other, like I said, some of the bigger regrets from the National. The very first night, one of the very first tables I went to, I saw a Warren Spahn from the set. I think it was like a SGC 1.5 or something. I thought, well, I don't collect graded, so I'm not going to buy this. And to me, to buy something and crack it out, I just didn't want to do that. But it was like $40 I think I could have got it for. I think it was marked at 45 or 50, and it's still one of the cards I need. But I kicked myself to this day because I didn't get it, because I thought, well, I'm not going to buy graded. But then I saw this there and ended up buying it later, on the third day I was there. But so that's why I just leave myself open to more options now than to just say I'm just a raw collector, because I missed out on that card, which I think would have been a great deal, because trying to find one raw now, they're all around at least $50 or more. So, and then also just wanted to, so this was actually the first graded card I picked up at the National. I just going in had in my head I wanted to pick up just at least one big card to remember my first National with. And I always loved Koufax, so it was this. And then I won't go into it now, but picked up a card at a steal of a deal and ended up selling it for 10 times that, and ended up funding this card. So that's why I ended up with 2 big cards. And then I saw this for, I believe, $100, and I thought it just looked great and couldn't pass it up, so picked up another graded one. But so this is kind of where I really thought I was just gonna keep on the path of, you know, low, just off grade, low grade, vintage, just picking up for different sets, picking up as much for this set as I could. And then kind of through setting up at shows and stuff, and just not wanting to get completely like, it's always fun just to delve into a little bit different things. So I'll show a couple different, very small right now, but some Hall of Fame autographs. These were kind of just things I saw. Both of these came in trades. This I bought from my buddy Troy at the last show I set up at, so just really wanted to keep expanding things a little bit. So and like I said, when I would open packs, I was chasing autographs back in, when I got back into the hobby, and sold off, you know, a lot of great ones because I kind of just thought I didn't like them anymore, but starting to really like them, especially of Hall of Famers. So very small collection of those. These I've never showed off. It's just also have 2 photos. There's Eddie Matthews, Bob Feller. So like I said, very small, but something I definitely want to keep adding to, along with this, which I just call my fan favorite autographs. A lot of Phillies, especially from the 08 Phillies in here. Older Philly there, Mike Lieberthal. Nice Ryan Howard, and then I showed this Marquise Grissom 5-star. So just stuff, you know, a lot of these were $5 or less. Just something, you know, nostalgic Phillies players, or guys from my childhood, that, you know, Grissom, guys like that I throughout the 90s were, you know, Hall of somewhat great, very good players. So that's also a little, I was trying to think how I wanted to explain this whole thing. Like I said, for years I was just accumulating cards, and then I got on the journey and on a path, or we'll say I got on a destination of what I wanted to collect. But then all these are just little pathways off of that. Just random cards from random, you know, sets that I'm not gonna build whole sets, but that I just picked up. It showed off these Brick Rosses. Musial's my favorite player all time, so the Wheaties, and I hadn't owned a Redman yet, so at the last show picked up Robin Roberts. And then something I want to get into more and more is pre-war. So these are some recent pickups. Like I said, these are very small branches off the path, but this was, for the year, one of my favorite pickups. But definitely things I keep looking into more and more. And lastly, this year, it started with this, and I did a whole video on, really getting into some non-sport stuff and enjoying it, and how much like I like to use it, collecting that stuff, just cards in general, but then that stuff especially because I can tie it into shows and movies that I love and watch over and over because of the comfort I find in that, kind of to deal with anxiety. I won't get into that whole thing, but I have a video up about that if you want to look into it at all. But I haven't showed these. I don't believe I showed these off in its entirety, but I just, like I said, wanted to get into some non-sport stuff. So these were just sets I picked up. Most of these were like on eBay for $10 or $15 for sets. These are from the Harry Potter franchise. I think there's 5 complete sets in here. But just something, like I said, I got into new this year, and just has really been a lot of fun just to connect that to, like I said, franchises or shows that I love watching. So what initially got into that was some of these relic cards. Well, I guess costume cards are called, from Harry Potter. And I was picking these up, and then it's kind of where I wanted some of the autographs, but the autographs from these, because these sets are all like 11 or 12 years or older, and very hard to find now, and very expensive to find any, if at all, like unopened wax, and then the autographs from them very, very expensive. So it was kind of where I was seeking out autographs. So that's where I got back into the autograph game with the Hall of Famers and the baseball stuff I showed earlier. And then in that video I showed earlier, so I wanted to collect, something from a non-sport set that had autographs. So this is one of my favorite shows of all time, Psych. So I've shown these off that I picked up this year, autographs from there. And I mentioned before when I showed these off, this is from Cryptozoic, and the quality of the cards is just fantastic, and they're all on card. There's Steve Urkel. He guest starred on the show, so it's not as, but Jaleel White, who played Jimmy Simpson, who went to college at Bloomsburg University, which is like 25 minutes away from me. And then Corbin Burnson stars on the show. Thought it was pretty cool with the baseball tie in the Major League. So that's really it. We'll end just with showing this, because I know you love Hall of Fame autographs and Braves, so we'll end with the Spawn. Just putting that back up, but sorry this video is all over the place, kind of just rambled, but I think I got out most of my story, which I've told in bits and pieces so far in my videos. But just most importantly, wanted to get together or show the whole thing, because like I love this hobby. I love cards. I don't think I had mentioned how I actually got into vintage. So you know, maybe around 3 years or so I've been collecting it or into it, and you know, really kind of dove in headfirst into it and love it, and I'm never gonna get rid of that. um, all this stuff that I showed, I mean, hopefully never have to get rid of in any way. Just keep collecting that. Definitely want to push on, try and complete the 53 set, which would just be something I never even remotely dreamed I could ever do. But it's becoming more and more closer to maybe being a reality. And then hopefully maybe some of the other sets. But it's kind of like I said, been kind of lost in this hobby for years. Not lost, but just not really having like a direct goal. Just like I said, I was more of an accumulator than a collector. But really, you know, just turning into a true collector now, and just loving the hobby and the cards this much now. And just, it was just nice to put this all together in one big story. So I appreciate the opportunity, you know, with the contest, and kind of give me a reason to put this all together in one long story. I appreciate you hanging on for watching this long. But just thank you for the contest, and you know, thank you for the support on my channel and your friendship. To everyone else, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, sorry it was pretty long, but I'll be back next time with hopefully some shorter videos. But just thank you, and just remember, any card can be a great looking card, even if it has 4 soft corners. Thank you.